Welcome to part 2 of my Cities Skylines vanilla showcase project. I don't even know what I'm going to call these videos, but if you missed part 1, make sure to go into the description of this video. There's going to be a link there, and it's probably popping up on the top right corner of the screen as well. So maybe if you haven't seen that, go check that one out first, because it will give you some context to what I'm doing here. But if you've already seen that, let me just walk you through some of the things that are going to be taking place here. First things first, and you probably noticed this, I didn't specifically address this, but the last few seconds of the previous video, I showed some time lapse of me tinkering with Photoshop. What I was trying to do there is coming up with a custom LUT to give it, a bit more a different texture to the colors and how everything looks. You're gonna notice me changing the LUT many times over throughout this video because I couldn't quite settle in on a style that I wanted. In fact, I had to resource to a friend who's an expert when it comes to color. And he gave me a hand, and I ended up using his color profiles. But for the most part, what I'm interested in, or what I wanted to share with you primarily, is all these new features from the DLC. First things first, we have all these new paths that you're seeing me tinker with here. This behaved like the old pedestrian paths that we used to have, right from the beginning of the since the game came out, basically. And but these ones are a little bit more detailed. In fact, they have props that are laid out every once in a while. And they have the base DLC comes with a few different textures that depend on which type of park you're working on. So I'm not going to go into all of the features of the DLC because I'm guessing at this point you've already seen a million videos on them. But I'm just going to give you some ideas. There's 4 types of parks. You have the city park, you have the theme park, the zoo, and the natural park, or the national park, I think it's actually what it's called. And they all come with their own set of fences and pedestrian paths and set of assets that you can actually plop alongside the path of these custom pedestrian paths. I keep saying the word path. I can't think of a better synonym for that, but they're pretty flexible actually, and I've been using them all over the place. I mean, you saw me do 5 different parks that are not necessarily part of the DLC types of parks, but they're great fillers for example, in this case, I wanted to do this government type area, and just tinkering. This is by the way, this red one is the one for the theme park. And I just tinkered with it a little bit. Of course, I'm using Move It to get the perfect location of everything. If you spend enough time, you can do it with vanilla. You don't need Move It. But I recommend Move It. I know I did a whole monologue on this in the previous episode, but trust me, it's worth trying it out. That's how much I recommend it. I'm venturing, or I'm willing to be really annoying and you skipping on the video to tell you many times how good Move It is. But that's it. That's all for now. This thing, I'm putting one of these Ferris wheels that resemble. I'm pretty sure this is built after the London Eye, and I thought it was a nice addition. I couldn't figure out whether or not this was, since I rarely use the unique buildings. I'm sorry, but I couldn't figure out whether or not this was part of the new DLC or not. But I thought it was definitely a touristy thing, and the whole point of the DLC is to bring in more tourists into your city. There's even you can now do a bus route for a sightseeing, a double-decker, one of those red buses that you see on city, touristy cities. There's actually one that runs by my neighborhood I see every day, which is, it's always empty, nobody rides it. I don't know what the business model is, but and also I wanted to in terms of the city, I wanted to have some backdrops. So I spent some time working on the farther away areas of the city. In this case, I'm building an industrial area, and I'm trying it to look relatively nice. I mentioned in the previous episode that I was mostly going to be focusing on a European themed city. For some reason, I think that fits better with the theme, but with the theme of the parks, I guess. But don't discourage you. Don't let that discourage you from applying the same style to other types of cities. These assets are they fit this generic criteria that I really like. Which, but what I mean by that is that they're so generic that you can apply them to any city that you want, and you can apply them to any combination of things that you want. So for example, in this case, I'm using the theme park fence as an industrial fence because it looks great. And this is the city park one, the black one, and I'm trying to like sort of limit the area where industrial ends and residential begins. Now these parks, you need to create a district, kind of. It's not a district, but it behaves the same way as districts. I rarely use districts. I don't really care about that because as I mentioned in the previous episode, I don't play by the base game mechanics. But if you want to put these like beautiful gates, they need to belong to a district. If you don't put a district, I think we'll create districts for you, and I accidentally did that in the beginning. So the first couple parks that you saw me add had that I guess problem where I had all these like microscopic parks that are only around the gates, and they're not part of as a whole. But I think it's worth spending some time creating these parks because they do bring in more people into your city, and like everything, just like all the buildings around them sort of react to it in a positive way. So it's probably worth the effort, even if you play from a detail perspective. I'm not sure what kind of people will be watching this video. I'm guessing most of them will be, my regular viewers who are here for like the ultra detail, ultra modded type of videos. But yeah, I'm trying to in a way showcase how much you can do in a mostly vanilla setting. It's not that bad. That's what I was kind of shocked to learn that, but it's true. You can get really, really far and have like a great level of detail without adding a lot of mods. In fact, you can get a lot of detail without adding any mods, but it certainly makes your life easier if you do. This, what I'm working on here is the natural park. One of the ideas or one of the requests from Paradox when I was putting this together is like, hey, let's have all the parks sort of converge into one spot, because that would make it much easier to get the shots for the Steam workshop, for the Steam store, and the trailers of the videos and all that. And in fact, they did a 360-degree video that you can watch of the city, so I'm going to include links to that in the description as well. It's really cool stuff. I wish that was actually a thing that I could use in my videos, but I know they had to like hack the game. They were like running Cities Skylines out of like Unity instead of like Steam. I don't know exactly how that ended up working, but they were struggling for a while until they managed to get it to work. I would love to have my cities be in 360 degrees and you can like use a VR headset to navigate them, but maybe in the future. Thing is, all of these parks, going back to what I was saying, all these parks need to sort of converge in the middle. So there's going to be like a city park. Actually, it's not a city park. It's just like a regular plaza that I created. And that plaza has the 4 entrances to the city park, the zoo, the theme park, and the national park. And obviously, if I was creating a city like from scratch on my own, I may have not done that per se. I mean, don't get me wrong, it looks great. I think it came out fantastic, but it's I don't know, it's a little bit unrealistic. So most of what you see here, it's like showcase all of the different features of the DLC. That's the whole point. So I'm trying to like, I'm using this video as an excuse to like justify all my decisions, if I even need to. But you can clearly see now all the districts that I zoned and how they're affected. The parks used to be much larger when I was like laying them out, but then I realized it didn't have to be as big. In fact, I ended up like rearranging the areas quite a bit. I guess I put the zoo first in the middle, but then I replaced that with the theme park and so on. You probably already saw the cinematics, and there's going to be like more cinematics at the end of this episode, unlike the previous one where all I did was just showcase time lapse of the Photoshop lot creation. In this episode, there's a whole set of cinematics, similar to what I did in the teaser, but there's like more, like there's like new shots too. So it's worth, in my opinion, staying until the end of the episode. It's always worth staying at the end of my episodes. Come on, man. In any case, I'm starting working on the theme park. One of the challenges that I had working on these is, so when you look at these parks like in real life, Some of them, sometimes they do stand out a little bit, but in general, when you look at aerial photography of a city that features some of these parks, they kind of blend in. And since we're trying to showcase this this DLC, it needed to be very clear which ones were part of the theme park and which ones were part of the national park, and so on and so forth. So I had to be particularly careful on how I placed everything, and I needed to add a lot of visual cues to separate one from another. And the only way I was able to do that is with vegetation. In fact, as I'm detailing this theme park, I'm just going to add a row of trees that sort of follows the road that separates it from the zoo. So when you look at some of the aerial cinematics that are at the end, or if you've already seen the trailer, you're gonna probably notice that now that I'm mentioning even more so. But that was sort of the idea there. In general, I guess I haven't quite talked about the DLC per se. So here's what I think about it. First of all, I think they added a lot of amazing features to the base game. The fact that now there's a thing called fences. The same way in the previous DLC, I think it was Green Cities, they introduced the fact that you can do networked anything. And that has changed the game dramatically, because now you can do fences. I used to be able to do fences as roads, but now there's a thing called fences, and it behaves a little bit better than the actual hacky fences we used to have before. I'm known for using this concrete walls all over the place that pretty much behave like a fence, but they're a road. I think this opens up the possibility, and this is built into the base game. You don't really need DLC for this to get this feature. That being said, the base assets that the DLC has, I'm gonna be using those a lot. I think they're really well done. The fences for the zoo. I mean, you saw me do that in Industrial Area just a second ago, for the theme park, the one that has a reddish, oxidized kind of fence. That looks awesome. I'm gonna be using that a lot. And that will save me a lot of props too, which is something that I'm really interested in as well. Some of these paths are nicer than others. They're certainly much more rich in detail than the plain concrete pedestrian paths we used to have. So that already is a pretty big improvement. All of the 4 theme parks have much greater detail when it comes to their paths. I would say, most of the fences for all the 4 parks are actually really great. I'm liking it a lot. The one that I'm not super sure about is the national park, which is a wooden fence. It looks fine. I think it could be pretty useful. The problem with that one is that when you start stretching the nodes, and maybe this is something that only happens because I'm using Move It, but it does stretch the mesh of the actual model that they use as a base fence. So you have to be careful with that. You can't just click and stretch the thing. You need to create nodes every once in a while to sort of reset the maximum width of the model. But other than that, I think it looks great. Many of these buildings, these ploppable buildings that I'm using, I probably won't use too much. They do make your park look nicer a little bit, and they do promote spawning of people walking through your park. So I guess that's a positive thing. These decals are new too. I think this is the only one I was able to find, to be honest. I didn't have a lot of time to go through every single prop in it, because every one of these parks has its own set of props. There's many of them that are really great. All these food trucks are awesome. I'm going to be using those as well. So, I might be a little bit biased because I was, privileged enough to be able to have this, to have access to this DLC before a lot of people, and to be able to put this city together. Overall, I think I really like it. I probably won't use the parks like they were meant to be, but certainly the assets are worth using it. That being said, that pretty much wraps up this episode. We're getting into the cinematics. So if you enjoyed this journey here with me, please consider giving this video a like. Let me know what you think in the comment section of this DLC. Are you going to get it? Are you going to wait till it's on sale? I think there's a lot of potential, and it certainly will add a lot of detail to your previously heavily modded cities too. So yeah, something to consider. But that's pretty much all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you in the next one.